cave diver vanished in 2016 to 8 years later, diving team found his camera 800 feet underground. Elias Thorne didn't just dive caves, he mapped them with surgical precision. So when he vanished in the widow's throat, everyone assumed a freak accident until the 2024 recovery team played the final 74 minutes of his GoPro. The footage doesn't show a man lost in the dark. It shows Elias doing everything right, following the permanent safety line through a total silt-out, only to realize the rope he was gripping wasn't leading to the surface. As the silt clears, the camera reveals a horrifying truth. The cave walls are wrong, and the line has been professionally diverted into a vertical death trap. The most chilling moment? A split-second shadow of a black fin moving above him, and the discovery of a freshly tied knot at the end of a line that shouldn't exist. Elias wasn't a victim of the cave. He was a victim of a line weaver who turned his only hope for survival into a tether for his grave. Before we go any further, if this is your first time here, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Your support means the world and helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Stick with us until the end, and if this mystery moves you, share your thoughts in the comments and pass it along to a friend. There's a specific kind of silence you only find deep underground, submerged in millions of gallons of ancient water. It's a silence that feels heavy, like the earth is holding its breath, waiting for you to make one wrong move. For the cave diving community in Central Florida, that silence has a name: the widow's throat. Back in 2016, if you asked anyone about Elias Thorne, they'd tell you the same thing. The man was a machine, a 40-year-old technical instructor who lived and breathed the limestone labyrinths. He wasn't some weekend warrior looking for a thrill. He was the guy the state called when other divers got lost. Elias was meticulous. He had this habit of double-checking his O-rings until his fingers were raw, and his dive plans? They were basically works of art. I remember hearing the locals at the dive shop back then. Two guys were leaning against a rusted pickup, whispering while Elias geared up. One of them spat into the dust and muttered, "He's going in solo again. Guy thinks he's part fish." The other just shook his head, replying, "It ain't the fish I'm worried about. It's that ego. One of these days the throat is going to swallow him whole." But it wasn't ego. It was a survey mission. September 12, 2016. Elias entered the water at 1:47 p.m. He told the basin manager he'd be out by 4. When 4:30 rolled around, and the surface of the spring remained as still as glass, the panic started to ripple. The search was, it was massive. We're talking 40 of the best recovery divers in the world, guys who had seen everything. They spent 11 days down there, pushing into every crevice and mapping every dark hole. They found nothing. No tanks, no fins. Not even a scratch on the cave walls to show he'd been there. It was like the cave had just erased him. The lead investigator, a guy named Morrison, who had recovered dozens of bodies, looked like he'd aged 10 years in a week. He stood by the water's edge, his voice cracking as he told the press, "Bodies don't just disappear. They settle. We've checked every passage. He's not in the system." The case went cold. Elias's daughter, Maya, used to sit on that same dock for months, just staring at the bubbles rising from the depths, waiting for a father who was never coming home. Fast forward 8 years. August 2024. A mapping team from Georgia was testing some high-end sonar gear in an unmapped side vent about 900 feet deep. It was a slow, tedious crawl through water that felt like liquid ice. One of the divers, Michael, saw a glint of something in a jagged limestone chimney. It was a camera housing, wedged so tight into a 17-inch slot that he had to use a crowbar to pry it loose. There was no body in that immediate area, just the camera. But when they got it to the surface and saw the name Thorne etched into the plastic, the air in the boat just vanished. The footage was recoverable. 74 minutes of high-definition dread. And as the investigators sat in that dim sheriff's office to watch it, they realized that everything they thought they knew about Elias Thorne's accident was a lie. He didn't get lost because he was arrogant. He didn't die because he was careless. He died because someone had invited him into a grave. The footage doesn't start with a bang. It starts with a click, the sound of a metal clip snapping onto a D-ring. It's a sound Elias Thorne had made thousands of times. On the screen, you see his hands, large, steady, and dark-skinned, adjusting the focus on his lens. He's wearing a thick neoprene hood, and you can hear his breathing. Hoo-paa, hoo-paa. The mechanical, rhythmic pulse of a diver who is completely at peace. Visibility is incredible today, Elias says. His voice is muffled by the regulator but clear. It's like flying through glass. For the first 30 minutes, the video is almost hypnotic. You see the limestone walls of the west chimney drifting past. The water is so blue it looks fake. You can actually see the tiny fossils embedded in the rock faces. Remnants of creatures that died millions of years ago, now watching a man swim past. Elias is moving like a ghost, barely kicking, using his fingertips to guide himself off the ceiling. He's laying a temporary survey line, a thin, neon green reel that stands out against the white stone. Around the 40-minute mark, something shifts. The camera captures a group of small catfish darting erratically away from a side passage. Elias pauses. He tilts his head, listening. In a cave, you don't just use your eyes. You use your skin to feel the pressure. The cave is breathing, he mutters. Pressure drop. Probably a localized collapse in the lower gallery. And then, it happens. Not a crash, but a rush. A massive plume of chocolate-colored silt erupts from the floor ahead of him. It's like a high-speed train made of mud. In less than 10 seconds, that glass-like water is gone. The screen goes pitch black. I mean, absolute zero. You can hear the silt hitting the camera housing. Tick, 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 like sand against a window. Elias's breathing quickens, just for a second. Hoopa, hoopa, hoopa. But then he forces it back down. Total blackout, he narrates. His voice is lower now, a whisper to keep his heart rate under control. Losing visual, reaching for the primary line. You see his hand, only visible because of the powerful light mounted to his wrist. Reach out and find a white nylon rope. This is the permanent safety line, the umbilical cord that leads to the surface. He does a circle wrap with his fingers, a standard safety grip. He begins to move. But here's where it gets weird. As he pulls himself along, he's checking his compass. Every few feet he glances at the needle. You can see his brow furrow through the mask. Something isn't adding up. The line should be heading north-northeast, toward the basin. But the compass is screaming west. He stops. He's breathing harder now. The line feels new. He whispers. Too much tension. This isn't the main line. Imagine being 800 feet underground, in a room where you can't see your own hand, realizing the rope you're holding is taking you deeper into the earth. Wow, most people would have lost it right then. But Elias? He tries to backtrack. He turns around, keeping his hand on the rope, trying to find where he made the wrong turn. But as the silt begins to settle just a tiny bit, enough to see maybe 2 inches, the camera captures something terrifying. Elias shines his light directly at the rope. He's looking for the directional markers, little plastic arrows that point toward the exit. He finds one, but it's pointed inward. He stops, his hand trembling just a fraction. He reaches out and touches the arrow. It's not a standard dive marker. It's been 3D printed. It's a fake. In the background of the audio, you can hear a faint metallic clink, like a tank hitting a rock. Elias freezes. He turns his head toward the sound. Who's there? He gasps into his regulator. Is someone there? There's no answer. Just the sound of his own bubbles hitting the ceiling. He speeds up now, his movements becoming more frantic. He's following the line, hoping it's just a mistake, a prank, anything. But the cave geometry is changing. The white limestone is gone. He's entering a vertical shaft of jagged, black rock. A place that isn't on any map. The line it's leading into a siphon, Elias says, his voice breaking. If I go in there, I can't get back out against the flow. He looks at his pressure gauge, 700 psi. He's running out of time. He has to make a choice. Follow the line, and hope it leads to a pocket of air. Or let go and swim into the blackness. He chooses the line. As he pulls himself into a narrow vertical chimney, the space becomes so tight that the camera mounted to his chest starts to scrape against the walls. Screech, screech. It's the sound of a man being buried alive in water. And then, the line ends. The camera shows Elias reaching the end of the rope. It's not tied to a stake. It's tied to a 20-pound lead weight sitting at the bottom of a dead-end hole. He pulls on the rope, and it just sags. He's trapped in a chimney barely wider than his shoulders, 800 feet down, and the safety line was a literal tether to a grave. At that moment, the camera captures a shadow. Just for a split second, at the very edge of the light, something moves above him. Not a fish, not a bubble, a fin. A black, professional diving fin, disappearing back up the chimney. Elias Thorne didn't get lost. He was led. The final 14 minutes of Elias Thorne's footage are hard to watch. Not because they are violent, but because they document the slow, agonizing realization of a man who knows he has been outplayed by a monster. In the frame, you can see Elias's hands trembling, just a micro movement, a slight rattling of the camera as his fingers trace the end of that rope. He's stuck in the vertical chimney, a space so tight he can't even shrug his shoulders to adjust his tanks. The sound of his breathing is different now. It's no longer the steady hoo-ha of a professional. It's short, sharp gasps, the sound of a man trying to bargain with the last of his oxygen. "The knot," Elias whispers. His voice is thick, with a terrifying clarity. "It's a double fisherman's, fresh nylon. This wasn't here 3 months ago when we mapped the throat." He tries to push upward, but the chimney is a siphon. The water is pushing down on him, pinning him like a bug under a thumb. You can hear the metal of his cylinders grinding against the jagged black rock. Creak. Scrape. It's the sound of a coffin closing. Elias stops struggling. He seems to realize that every thrash is just burning the 3 minutes of air he has left. He reaches up and adjusts the camera, turning it toward his face. His eyes are wide, reflecting the beam of his failing dive light, but he's not screaming. He's thinking about Maya. "Maya, if you're seeing this, I didn't make a mistake, baby," he says, his voice cracking. I followed the line like I taught you. But someone changed the world while I was in the dark." He pauses. A long, heavy silence where the only sound is the low hum of the cave's current. "Stay out of the water, Maya. Please. Some things aren't meant to be found." Then, the camera captures something that the 2016 search teams missed because they weren't looking for a crime scene. As Elias's light begins to dim, he pans it upward one last time. There, caught in the beam for just 3 seconds, is a stainless steel bolt driven into the rock. It's a permanent anchor, the kind used to secure a death trap, and tied to it is a second rope, a yellow one, that leads straight up to a hidden bypass. The person Elias saw, the shadow with the black fin, hadn't just watched him. They had been waiting at the exit of the bypass to make sure he didn't squeeze through. The footage cuts to black at the 74-minute mark. When the 2024 recovery team finally extracted Elias's remains from that chimney, they found something even more chilling than the footage. In Elias's closed fist, they found a small piece of black neoprene. It had been torn from a diving suit, not his suit. He had managed to grab a piece of his killer before the siphon pulled him down. The investigation that followed the discovery of the camera blew the diving community apart. Forensics analyzed that 3D printed fake marker Elias found. They traced the resin to a high-end printer owned by a local dive shop owner, a man named Julian Vane, who had been one of the hero divers leading the search for Elias back in 2016. The gossip at the local docks turned toxic overnight. You'd see old-timers leaning over the railings of the marina, their voices low. "I always told you Vane was too helpful," one would mutter, looking over his shoulder. "He wasn't searching for a body. He was making sure nobody found that camera." The other would just spit into the water, replying, "He didn't just kill Elias. He killed the trust." Now, every time I grab a line in the dark, I wonder, who really put it there? Vane was never charged. He disappeared 3 days after the camera was recovered, his boat found drifting empty, 10 miles offshore. Some say he drowned. Others say he's just moved to another cave system, another widow's throat, waiting for the next expert to trust their life to a piece of string. 6. Outro. Elias Thorne was the best of us. He did everything right. He checked his gas, he monitored his depth, and he never let go of the line. But in the deep, silent places of the world, your greatest strength can be turned into your ultimate weakness. Today, Maya Thorne doesn't sit on the dock anymore. She's a forensic engineer now. She spends her days looking at knots, looking at ropes, and looking for the line weaver. Because the 74 minutes of footage her father left behind wasn't just a tragedy, it was a map. The caves still hold their secrets. But they aren't the only ones watching from the dark. Next time you're underwater and you feel that nylon cord beneath your fingers, ask yourself one question. Do you really know where it's taking you? Stay safe. Stay in the light. And never ever trust a line you didn't lay yourself. If you want to keep exploring the darkest corners of the wilderness and the mysteries that were never meant to be solved, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Every story we uncover is a reminder that the world is much deeper and more dangerous than it looks on a map. Drop a comment below. Would you have followed that line into the dark? Or would you have let go? Thanks for watching, and remember, stay in the light.